So you're awaiting heart transplant and your doctor's just got with you and informs you that you're about to be placed on a pretty common medication, an IV drug known as Milrinone. Now, when you hear that, immediately you're not sure what that is, but when you hear that it's a 24/7 IV drug, you begin to backpedal and panic and wonder, is that going to cramp my style? Will that change my life? Will that ruin my life? That's today's discussion. Go ahead and stay tuned.
Hit the subscribe button and click the bell notification to become part of the Transplant Helper community.
Hey folks, welcome to Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Burrell. Now, if you've been watching this program for very long, or maybe you're just pretty good at a Google search, you probably already realized we have videos previous to this all about that IV medication Milrinone. As a matter of fact, one of the videos I'm going to link up here in the corners as well as in the description below really kind of gives you a good overview of that drug, tells you what it's for, how it works, how it reacts with many people's bodies, how we're all different, but how it can be actually the go-go juice, or as someone referred to it, the rocket fuel that gives you the get up and go to help you wait this thing out up until transplant. And for me, at least, it was a pretty valuable drug, one that really helped me in a big way, although we're going to act a little bit different to that. But nonetheless, that's not really today's discussion. You can watch that video for that information. Today is really all about, will it kind of cramp my style? Will it keep me from doing the activities that I love, from participating with a family like I used to? Is it going to hinder me by being tied to an IV pole, so we see it, every day 24/7? Well, the general answer to that is basically no, more than likely not. If your body accepts the medication and reacts to it properly, it's actually going to do a lot to restore your life while you're waiting. You know, many of us, like I was, when you're waiting for heart transplant, many of those levels and pressures get really low, such as your ejection fraction. It may be down in the single digits, so, 10, 15, 20 perspective. And once that ejection fraction gets so low, you lose just about all your stamina, all your agility, all your ability to keep on keeping on, like I like to say. As a matter of fact, I was sleeping prior to transplant anywhere from 16 to 18 hours a day on a pretty regular basis. So I was pretty much scrapped. Anything that I did took away my energy, and I just couldn't keep moving. It was just really overbearing from one perspective, emotionally, physically, from every standpoint. But once I was placed on an IV drug Milrinone, which I was on for 10 months, it really helped, okay? Because my body reacted to it properly, it actually restored a large portion of my life. It's kind of like an artificial IV type of life support. It really gave me some stamina, some energy. And so I was back to walking and moving and a little bit, at least, playing with the kids, back to some of the activities I had not been able to do at that point in about 2 years. So being on Milrinone was a big help. Now, when it comes to the picture that you might have in your mind now about being tied to an IV pole and how aggravating and hard that would be to live life, that's actually not the case either. More times than not, and there are many ways to do this, but more times than not today, they're very, very small IV pumps, most of which, about this size, maybe about the size of a brick on a home or something like that, or even smaller, that can totally manage that drug Milrinone. As a matter of fact, I can remember back then, my Milrinone pump itself was smaller than the bag of Milrinone fluid that I carried in the same pack. Now, I was unfortunate in that I had to wear a fanny pack. And this was not 1970s, late 70s, early 80s, where fanny packs were all the rage and, it was a good thing to wear a fanny pack. It was certainly not that. We're talking about 2004, 5, 6s. Wearing a fanny pack was downright embarrassing, to tell you the truth. But I did have it in a black color, and it was such that a lot of times I could just simply leave my shirt untucked and cover it up, if that matters to you. And it was actually not that hard to handle. Now, in the beginning, the way it was kind of rigged up to begin with, it was put in through a PICC line in my arm somewhere. Actually, I've got the two scars right here, one here and one here eventually, but it was put there. And that was kind of difficult. The line was hanging on everything every day and, just kind of hard to deal with. I couldn't get a shirt on and off without detaching the line, that sort of thing. But I actually came up with a technique that my home health nurse helped me along with, where I could run that line into my shirt sleeve right down through here and let it connect to the pump beneath my shirt there, right on my belt where I was wearing the pump anyway. And that allowed me to pull my shirts on and off so I could change clothes without detaching. It really allowed me a lot of freedom. In addition to that, because the line was placed here and ran up in a shirt sleeve pretty quick, it really didn't get hung on anything anymore. There wasn't a line dangling off to the side. And I can remember really, once I got used to the situation, really finding life because of it. So it was not really that restrictive. Now, there are restrictions such as that Milrinone has to run 24/7 if you're going to have a bag change or a pump change or battery changes for the pump. That has to be done pretty quickly. So you've always got to walk around with an additional bag available. I kept it usually in my car or something like that, or maybe my wife had it tucked in her purse, but you always have to have extra bags of the drug itself. You have to have tons of batteries, maybe if they provide you with it, another pump to replace out, a few line supplies. So you kind of had a little medical supply bag with you. But other than that, no big deal. Okay. So I can remember back several years ago, I'm an Alabama football fan. Many of you may not be that if you're not from Alabama, but I'm an Alabama football fan, and I actually attended an Alabama football game, was able to set up in the upper deck and pretty much walk to my seat. That's a plus. And all I had to carry with me was one bag of fluid, which I can remember changing in the parking lot, setting my car before I went in. So, really wasn't that difficult. I think my bags lasted me for the most part about 12 to 15 hours, something like that. So, you can kind of time those things out and kind of think ahead and know what supplies you're going to need or not need. But for me, and many of others that I've been in contact with, other than learning to manage that IV line like I did, really not that restrictive. And so a lot of times that's what I'll tell people. I go in a hospital, I see that they're on IV Milrinone. I say, hey, if you'll change this line and you'll run this line this way, then you don't have it hanging and dangling and restricting you nearly as much. I hope this helps you out in some way. I just want to encourage you and say it's not the end of the world. Things will be fine. And the drug should, if it works right, should really give you a little bit of boost, a little bit of power so you can keep on going. Thank you so much for your questions and comments. I encourage you to continue to do that. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button right now, as well as the bell notification, and you'll be notified every time I put out new content, which I hope will help to advocate, educate, and motivate you as a transplant patient. But until next time, stay stronger, friends.